Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Around the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we're really fancy now.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time.
Grab a cup of joe and let's gather round that hay bale. With your hosts, Ann from Andale Homestead, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch, and Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. Here they are. Hey, Yall Hey!
Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome to Round the Hay Bale. I'm Ann with Andale Homestead.
Hello, everyone. It is Cayce over at Ormsby Farms.
I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch.
And this is Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona.
Now, y'all, if you are listening to us over on the podcast apps, but you want to see our bright and shiny faces, head over to our YouTube channel. Like and comment. We love reading all of the great comments that y'all are leaving us on both our social media pages and our videos. And it also helps out our algorithms so that, our podcast can be put out to more like-minded people. Click our LinkTree link, which is down below underneath the video, and it will take you over to our social media links. And then click on YouTube and be sure to subscribe. So on today's episode, we are talking about how to store fresh produce, the fruits and vegetables. I know for sure that in my mind, think I am a professional. Okay, now we don't know if that's real in real life, but in my head, I'm a professional. But I think I'm going to pitch it over to Monica because Monica's really good at not storing things in the pantry. Is that pretty much well said?
Yeah, that is. And I feel like you are, you must have a video camera on my pantry because I do live in Texas and I have a warmer than normal house. Okay. I keep my temperature here between 78 and 80. It's my little thermostat set on. And that's on a good day. It's not humid in my house, but it gets there. So I like to store my stuff in just one big space. You know how like when you have a plate of food and some people like to keep things separately and they like to eat their food separate. Okay, so my plate typically when I'm eating dinner, it's just all together. I don't care if it mixes. That's how my pantry is, okay? And my working pantry that we have right off my living room, dining room area, my kitchen and dining room area, that's where we have all of our stuff that I'm storing that I'm using right away. It also houses the stuff that I have good intentions of using right away. So you guys are hearing this podcast and it's definitely later than what we're recording it. But as of this morning, I walked into my pantry because I was going to get some stuff put away. I was putting away some potato chips. And I noticed that on the ground, underneath of another bag of potato chips that one of the children just threw in there, was the bag of sweet potatoes that I had bought. I don't know when I bought those sweet potatoes. I'm just going to admit it. Okay. It may have been May or June. I don't remember. I had really good intentions of making sweet potato like fries or something. I heard Cayce say something about like air fryer fries. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it. And so when I walked in this morning, I was like, oh, look at that. What is that? It is a sweet potato sprout that has a flower. It may be a flower. It may just be like the leaves sprouting. It's shot straight up. And it now has the leaves. I have like 4 different sprouts with 2 sets of leaves on them, just sitting on the floor in my pantry, with a box of cereal next to it, a package of chips on top, maybe a box of cookies to the side. But under them is a bag of sweet potatoes. It doesn't smell bad in there. I don't know what it looks like, this actual bag, but I know it was sweet potatoes. I have a fear now. I'm afraid to go in there to look and see. But I'm going to be honest. I don't know where to store them. I don't know how to store them. I don't know how to keep them from becoming full of eyes and sprouts and just dying before I can get to it. I mean, look, if I buy it, I should probably use it in the week. But that's not how I live. It just doesn't happen. I throw it in my pantry and I forget that it's there. So what do I do? How can I keep my stuff? Because I will say that I'm also the person that when I buy a pineapple, I sit it on my counter and I just let it sit there until it reminds me that it needs to be cut open. So what do I do? Let's start potatoes first, Sandi, or Ann, or Cayce. Who knows how to store potatoes, and how do I store them without becoming a goppy, nasty mess or sprouting real live plants in my pantry?
And it's silent. Oh, no. No, for me, a potato is something that really needs to have a cool, dark place. So if you can put it, depending on the temperature of your house, maybe a basement, a garage. For us, when we store potatoes and we want them to store all winter long, I use a great big garbage can, a plastic garbage can. I put a layer of straw. I put a layer of potatoes, straw, potatoes. I start with the biggest potatoes on the bottom, goes all the way up to the littlest potatoes. And that works really well for us. But most people are not going to have that many potatoes. So I would just suggest that you put it like in a Lazy Susan, a place where you're going to open that many times during the week so that you'll be making sure you use that. Now, I know people that have lists on their refrigerators, and so they can check, am I using those potatoes? Do I need to buy more potatoes? They're very organized. That's not most people's lives, but that is some people's lives. There are things that are better stored in the refrigerator. Some things are better stored in a Ziploc bag. So how do you learn those things? For me, I have some great cookbooks, and like this is an old cookbook, probably from the 70s. It's a Betty Crocker. It has pages, and it has fruits and vegetables, how to store them, what to do. So it makes it easy. I thought there's got to be places online. So I just pulled up a few places, a lot of universities, and they'll tell you how to store fruits and vegetables. So
cool.
I'm just like,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
completely mind blown. I mean, most of us knew that Sandi is a facts girl. She always says it on the podcast. She is a facts girl. She is prepared. And when people say, Cayce, how do you store? I'm like, listen, I call Sandi or I text Sandi and ask her. That's how I do it. Because I listened to Sandi. She told me about creating your own kind of microclimate. And you want to keep, as she said, cool, dark places. I'm in Georgia. It stays hot all the time. And I learned from my dear friend Monica to keep your air conditioning at 78 to 80 degrees. And if somebody's hot, they'll get a tank top because I'm not paying that electricity bill. So I had to figure out how to create my open door pantry because there's no door on my pantry. And I was like, Sandi, help, because I'm talking like my potatoes are going bad. When we first shot the beginning of this season, I had, I think it was 50 or 60 pounds of potatoes that I was blessed by a farmer's market friend and gave. And I was like, I don't know what to do. She was like, well, make sure that your pantry stays around, I think you said, what, 65 to 70? And I was like, that's not real life in Georgia. I mean, to keep a room in Georgia at that temperature, it's like watching something on Netflix. I mean, it's not really going to come true. But I was able to then find these plastic magnetized doors to create this microclimate, cooler climate in there that Sandi told me I needed for these vegetables. And I'm going to tell you, y'all, now that y'all can see my face, I'm going to look into the camera. It changed my life, and it changed the life of these winter squashes and potatoes and onions. I have never been able to keep potatoes and onions from going bad and smelling like a football locker room by like mid-November. And right now they're beautiful. Nothing smells. I've had them in there for about a month and a half. And I got these little tubs from the Amazon. Click our link tree. You can go over to our our different Amazon sites, but it was this potato one that had little holes in the bottom of them. It was really cute. It was very Instagram friendly. And I'm able to put onions and potatoes in there and it stays cool. And that's how I store my stuff in Georgia when it's 90 degrees outside. It is still 72 degrees in this small little pantry room. So listen to Sandi. Go to Sandi's page, Wealth of Knowledge, or if you have, for those who have her phone number, text and ask like I did.
That needs to be her new website. It's going to be called wealthofknowledge.com.
Yes. Can we get
Wealth of
t-shirts?
Knowledge. Welcome to Sandi's place, wealthofknowledge.com.
Well, as far as storing vegetables at our house, I believe, quite like you do, Monica, the kitchen table is quite the storage spot for our home. I do put some paper towels out and various things like that. But I have saved tomatoes that were green tomatoes, and it was coming a frost, and I knew that they were all going to be gone. So I went and picked everything and wrapped them in newspaper, which hardly any of us have newspaper anymore. It doesn't have to be newspaper, but something very dry. Put them in a box and stuck them under the bed. And they did ripen and they were good. We were able to, it doesn't taste the same. Kind of tastes a little bit like store-bought tomato, not like fresh homegrown, but we were able to save that crop. It was a whole great big bowl and bucket full of food that would have gone to waste. And I am struggling a little bit right now with butternut squash. I do have several that are on the kitchen table, and I don't know what to do with them. What can I do with butternut? Would they be better in the refrigerator?
Well, most squashes aren't better in the refrigerator.
Okay.
They're better to be on a counter, but really don't stack your squashes. The tomatoes, you can have 2 or 3 layers stacked. It's okay, because you're just rotating as they turn red. But I've just found that they're better if you don't, because once they start to turn, if they have weight on them, all of a sudden you might see goo coming out of the bottom because they've been there too long. But there are things, like I leave my cucumbers, my zucchinis on the counter, my bananas on the counter.
Right.
One trick that I have found that works pretty well with bananas. Some people say just put them in a brown paper bag, but I don't do that, because then I will forget what's inside the bag.
Right.
So I wipe them down with a kind of damp paper towel. Then I fold it and put it around where they come together, where those stems are.
Mm-hmm.
Then I take plastic wrap and wrap around that, and they seem to last a lot longer. They don't turn as fast.
Okay.
And so that has worked real well.
That's good.
If I'm storing berries, like my strawberries or raspberries that I've picked, I can put them on a plate and not have them touching. And it seems to work pretty good. But for the most part, I just put them in a container with a little bit of sugar, and the sugar becomes a preservative, and I put a lid on it, and they last a very long time like that. They do get a lot of syrup, pulls the liquid out, but I like that when I put it on cakes or ice cream or whatever we're having.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. So you just put those in the refrigerator. Now, okay. That's good. I'm trying to think of the things that I have on the table right now.
Well, and butternut squash, and you should be able to overwinter those.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right. That's what I want to, but they're looking a little weird. So.
I remember I watched a YouTube video. I can't remember who it was, but they said if you can put your nail, like if you press the nail into their skin and it doesn't bounce back, that they've been cured long enough. Is that true, Sandi? That is? And I listened to you again when you said to not let them touch. I got a wire shoe rack, and at the very bottom of my pantry is a wire open shoe rack. So I have all of my spaghetti squash on that. So none of them really have to touch. There's a couple, like the 3 that are on the one, but they get the airflow. They're not stacked on top of each other. I wonder if I think that'd be a good one for the butternut squash.
Yeah.
I love butternut squash. Squash.
If you pick the butternut or any winter squash too soon, it won't last as long. So what you're looking at it is the thumbnail that works. And then also the stem that it's attached to the vine should have started getting more dried out. Sometimes it turns a little bit darker color.
Brown, yeah.
And then you're going to clip it off so it has some space. You don't want to clip it too close to the winter squash.
Yeah, that's how I knew, because this was my first year of growing butternut squash.
Oh.
And so you can tell the difference in the end. The stem is green when it's not quite ready. I mean, it's real green, and then it begins to get darker. And then when it was really brown, I figured it was done. So that's what we did. We pulled them at the time. But as far as storing fresh fruits and vegetables, we all love growing lettuce, collards, brassicas, all those types of things. But other than freezing things, and I can't really freeze lettuce, or I haven't had success in freezing lettuce. Monica, maybe you can share something with us.
Okay, I may not be good at potatoes, but I watched this lady on YouTube one time, and I actually watched her last year sometime, the beginning of the year, and the channel is actually The Cross Legacy. And if you go watch her, she actually tells you, and the idea was originally was storing things in mason jars, but it also leads itself to glass containers. Okay. So, everybody's back to store. You go from this like pendulum of everybody uses glass to store, and then now everybody uses plastic to store. Well, now everybody's using glass again. Okay. So, which is great. I love it because my kids are old enough that we can use glass. Now, do we have glass shattering out of our refrigerator sometimes? Yes, we do. But it's worth having things in glass because they last longer. So one of the methods that she does, for instance, strawberries to start, and that's how I started and I wanted to test this theory. She takes a quarter cup of vinegar into a big bowl of water, and she soaks the strawberries. She kind of, not very long, within just a minute or two. She does enough to swish them around, soak it. Very short period of time. You don't want to have that soaking very long. And you're kind of swishing it around. You're getting it all clean. You're rinsing it. And then you take and you dump all the water out and you rinse your berries down. You put them in, I put them in my little, what's it called? The little lettuce thing where you push it down and it rinses it out.
Oh, the spinner.
There you go. Salad spinner. Boom. So you can put your strawberries in there, kind of spin that liquid out. And then you lay your berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberry, whatever berries you have, lay your fruit on a paper towel, a couple paper towels, and you let it sit. You can let it sit to kind of just sit out and dry a little bit more. And once they dry and that moisture kind of patted off there, and let's say dry out a little bit more, you can now stick them in a mason jar. Put a paper towel in there if you really want to at the bottom, or you can wait and put it in the side. And you put the strawberries, berries, whatever it is, in a mason jar, put that lid on there, and you can put that in your refrigerator. And we actually tried her method. It kept our berries for 3 weeks.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. My daughter normally says to me after about 4 days, Mom, strawberries are going bad. There's mold in there and blah, blah, blah. And we pay a lot for fruit. And I have this is my catch 22, right? I buy a big box of fruit at the grocery store or Costco or wherever. I bring it home and the kids are like, can we eat that fruit? And I'm like, of course you can eat that fruit. And then they eat all of it in 24 hours. And then I'm mad because I just wasted $8 on fruit that they consumed in 24 hours.
Yes.
Or I say, no, you can't eat the fruit yet. Let's space it out over the week. We put it in the refrigerator and then they forget. And then 2 weeks later, my daughter says, Mom, there's molded fruit in the refrigerator. And I'm like, of course there is, because I didn't let everybody eat it the minute I walked in the door. So with the method of storing it in glass containers, it really helps. So I tried the same thing with my romaine lettuce. I had bought some romaine that I wasn't growing at the time. And I actually did it with some lettuce that I grew. You take your lettuce. And if you have a whole head of romaine, what you want to do is you can actually take and chop the back end off. You're going to rinse each leaf down, rinse it down. And then you can actually take paper towels and dry the leaves. It takes some time. Okay. But if you want your produce to last, you will do this. You dry it off and then you'll stack it in a longer glass container. They have those deeper glass containers with the plastic seals to them, or the glass top seals.
Yes.
I have a few of them that are bigger. And I have some ones that are kind of a bigger space. You put your romaine lettuce in that, line the bottom with a paper towel. You lay your lettuce in that, put your lid on it, and your lettuce, if you rinse it and dry it, and then you stick it in there, your lettuce will last for 2 weeks at least.
Awesome.
And
Wow.
I have done that successfully without my lettuce going bad fast. Lately we've been going through lettuce so quickly, it's not a problem. If you're growing it, a lot of times you can just pull it and eat it as you need it. But if it's the end of the season and you need to pull what you've got and you're not growing it,
Right.
pull it, take the time to rinse it, to dry it, and to stick it in your glass containers. And I'm telling you, it absolutely works. So the glass containers have really been helpful for me. When it comes to squashes and stuff like that, if it looks like it's going to go bad quicker, like Sandi was saying, I will take them and I will chunk them up, especially with those like butternut squashes, that it's pretty much only a few of us that like in our house. I'll chunk it up and then I will vacuum seal it and throw it in my freezer, because that's what
Okay.
seems to give us the best flavor when you pull it out and you
Yeah.
crack that vacuum seal, and you can throw it in whatever cooked items you need to throw it in. And I've used it in chilies and meals like that, and it's just as good as fresh, in my
Okay.
opinion.
I have a question because I have used it. We do that too. We freeze our zucchini and green beans and all those kinds of
Yeah.
things. But oftentimes, when I am in a rush, which is normal for my life, stick them in a Ziploc bag and stick them in the freezer. Well, they get
Mhm.
freezer burned very quickly. But
Mhm.
do they, when you vacuum seal them, do they do better?
Yes. In my opinion, they do, because you really are pulling out a lot of that air, but you're also putting it in a thicker, stronger, I think a higher quality. Plus,
Bang.
you think you're pulling out as much air as possible, even if it's a Ziploc freezer. You're not. You're not
Right.
pulling out as much air as they're
Right.
doing in that vacuum sealer. The vacuum sealer, ours is put away. It's put back in this closet over here. I gotta climb over things to get to it. But I will tell you that the time and energy that I put into grabbing my vacuum sealer out, plugging it in, getting it set up, it's worth it in the long run if I take those
Okay.
extra few
I'll
minutes.
try to do that
It
then.
is worth it 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for vegetables and for meats as well. I mean, it
Mhm.
is an extra kind of step, but it does, because I'm with you, Ann. I'm with you. During busy season, I
It's,
throw them jokers in a gallon Ziploc bag and they go in my freezer.
yeah.
But they do get freezer burn. Now, do I mind it when I air fry it? Not really. But if I wanted to be a little bit classier with how I stored my stuff, then I would definitely vacuum seal, because that does save a
What
little
do you?
bit.
Wasn't there one of us that flash freeze their stuff before they put it in a
Mhm.
Mr.
Yeah.
Cayce? You flash.
Most of the time. Now, there are those times, like you said, when you get super busy,
Yeah.
like during zucchini. Okay, so we're talking about fresh produce. And I think, Sandi, correct me if I'm wrong, was it your daughter that when we were talking about episodes of, like, that was the one question that she was like, I would like to know how to store
Right.
fresh produce? Because
Right.
a lot of people that aren't even homesteaders want to know how to store it.
Right. Even
Zucchini season, we're
that they
getting
get from the
what?
store. Yeah.
Like tons and tons and tons of zucchini. You never just get one zucchini. We get like 5 billion.
Right.
And so I forget to flash freeze like zucchinis. I cut them up and I throw them in gallon bags because I
Mhm.
got to go cut up the next 4 billion.
Yeah, we do too.
But I do try to flash freeze meats and appetizers, because flash freezing I've noticed, helps with the freezer burn. That if you
Huh.
freeze it quickly, like within 24 hours, and then take it out, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just magic. I don't know. But I don't see as much freezer burn as I do on
Okay.
ones that I just threw in a Ziploc bag and run into my office to shoot our podcast.
There you go.
Okay, tell me if any of you guys have done this. Like in Wyoming, all of a sudden, 5 o'clock at night, they say, "Oh, we're going to have a freeze tonight." Oh, thank you. Um,
Oh. Oh my
so,
gosh.
I have literally pulled the entire tomato plant out, flipped it upside down, and hung it in my basement, in our garage. You could hang it in a shed, and then they'll just turn red as they go, as long as they're not getting frozen.
Oh
Um,
my.
I've pulled the whole cabbage plant out, turned it upside down, tied it up, and let it hang, because I have found that it will last longer for me.
Wow.
So have you guys done that before?
So I've pulled things out and I've put them, I don't hang them. because that's too much time. But I will take them and I will pull them out and I will throw them in my greenhouse to like save their life, or to dry them out a little bit. And I throw them on the racks. I have like trays, like, shelving in my greenhouse, and I will just like put it in there until I can get to it the next day or whenever, because it's just, I don't have enough time to cover everything. Because like the weatherman didn't know all of a sudden until like
Right.
that at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Oh, by the way, we're
Right.
going to get a freeze. So yeah, that's happened here plenty of times. And if we don't have enough time to cover, I've yanked things. I yanked a whole Tabasco plant a few years ago. It was massive. It was bigger than me. I yanked it from the ground and just threw it off to the side until it was, that way I brought it in my mud room and just stuck it in there so that I could deal with it the next day. Yeah.
Well, those are good ideas also. I mean, we don't have a basement or a garage, but
Yeah,
I
we
do
don't
have
have
a shed.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if it's not going to freeze, you can just hang things from there.
Yeah.
Mhm,
That's a
mhm.
great idea.
At the
Okay,
end of the season, I like to shake out. Like I'll pull the plant and shake it because it saves me time from having to pick all of the extra stuff of you and hold it upside down and shake. But that's the kind of extent of pulling and storing that I do.
Okay, so you guys know I love books. And I was at the library book sale and I found this book on food for 50, right?
Okay.
All the recipes are based on feeding 50 people. But inside there are literally pages of fresh produce, how to store it, what temperature. And then it has a column on if it is affected by ethylene gas, because fruits and vegetables produce ethylene gas. So some fruits you don't want to have in the same crisper because that apple is having all this ethylene gas come off of it, and it will make the other fruit get ripe too fast.
Oh, goodness.
And so, I mean, it's literally pages of what to do. So this was my great buy, and I thought we're going to do a podcast about this.
So we shouldn't store our apples and lemons and limes together. I'm only saying that because that's exactly how I do it in my fridge.
Honestly, any citrus should really just be on your counter. You don't have to put it in the fridge.
Right.
There are some posts that I saw that they store the apples in the fridge. I never store my apples in the fridge, or rarely. If I do, I put it in a bag and I seal it up because I don't want it affecting anything else. But like cucumbers, any citrus, zucchinis, squashes, I leave on the counter, or I move downstairs because I have shelves downstairs in my big pantry.
Okay, so there's pictures of a fruit bowl that people like have on their counter that looks all pretty. That's got like bananas and oranges and plums and apples. That's like literally not what you're supposed to do.
No, but it is pretty.
It's pretty for a party favor.
But then you get to the South where me and Monica and Ann are, and you go to reach for that fruit and like 4 billion fruit flies fly from underneath it. That's why I don't do it, because it's the worst. And then you're swatting everything.
Yeah, and there's all this ethylene gas getting produced, and it's making them ripen faster. And it's like, you don't want that.
Yeah, the fruit flies are insane. It is disgusting. Like you like literally are walking. You have to hold your breath so you don't like mess with. You're like, I don't want to
swallow one.
Yeah, yeah. The first time you inhale a fruit fly up your nose, not good. And that's usually when someone starts raging in the house about how horrible the house is and how we're just disgusting because we keep oranges with apples and it's bad.
So, but should I not store, because I do the same thing. I put apples and bananas, lemons and limes on my kitchen table. And,
no more.
But they should not be in the same area.
Right.
Because the apples will make the banana.
If you're going to eat them right away, you probably don't have anything to worry about. But if they're going to sit on your counter for a few weeks, and you have them all together, all this ethylene gas is being produced, and all these little fruit flies are just loving those little dark cool areas. And so you just don't want to do it.
And so when you store them on the counter or whatever, you take them out of the bag if you have purchased them?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There are things that you can store in plastic bags, but almost all of those things should be in the refrigerator anyway.
Oh.
So apples could go in the fridge. Apples should go in the refrigerator.
Well, I don't put my apples in the refrigerator unless my counter space is too full, and then I have them in a bag and it's sealed up.
Oh, so if you're going to put your apples in the refrigerator, keep them in the bag.
Yeah.
sealed up.
Yeah.
It's going to keep them crisper and fresher.
And
longer.
yes, and it won't make other things
go bad.
And
Got
see,
it.
I thought taking it out of the bag made me all classy and Instagram worthy. Yeah,
No,
to have all the fruit. Yeah?
it just makes you a breeding ground for little baby flies.
I know, and I've had it up my nose, so I know the.
Oh no,
I
they're
know how it is.
terrible. They're
They're
just
awful.
terrible.
Huh?
They're awful.
Yes. So we're
Okay.
trying.
Well, I was going to say, this has been such a, like, there's so much information, and I know that we're going to get more information. I know that there's so many more questions y'all are having, because there's already ones that I've written down that I'm going to come back and ask, because this video is dropping right here. This podcast is on a Monday, and that means coming up in just 4 days is our Friday live show, which means you can come back and you can see us again, and you can ask us all the questions in the live chat. So don't forget that if you're in the podcast world right now, don't forget to come over and check us out and see our faces here on YouTube, but also to come back on YouTube on Friday and check out Round the Hay Bale podcast, Hey Yall Hey morning show that we do, and we stream on all of our platforms, all of our YouTube channels, as well as our Round the Hay Bale YouTube channel. It is so much fun on Fridays, and I'm excited to be able to ask some more questions coming up, because I know I'm going to have plenty more questions by the time this episode actually comes out. And between now and then, I'm going to just start making my list of things I need to ask Sandi and Ann and Cayce to verify that I'm doing is right or very, very wrong. So I think it's time for me to leave. I think we should all, go on with our day. I've got to go clean out my pantry now, because I have a feeling there's a lot more in there than them sprouting sweet potatoes. So on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks for coming. And don't forget to click the LinkTree and check out all the great things that we have in our Amazon stores and all the things that we love. So until next time, bye y'all. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Bye.